still 25% of the Russian economy is still controlled by the mafia and Jewish oligarchs, but it's not so strong as it was before. When Gorbachev met with the Italian mafia controlled unions in Sicily, it was already sort of carved up, as you can see in Mafia Incorporated, a book which I read years ago. It was already in vogue for the mafia to basically dissect Russia up and launder it. You can see that in evidence from the fact that welcome to part 3, that there were queues and queues for miles and miles of wood, oil, every type of natural commodity on the borders with Poland and Germany. Europe was for in a certain way was complicit with the sacking of what was left of the Soviet Union. Okay, so Putin's family at one point, you may say he's immoral, but he was brave. He of course, his wife is Jewish, and so he had to. But there isn't a powerful Jewish pro-Israeli lobby in Russia. There is a powerful pro-Russian Jewish lobby in Russia, and that is the ability of the Slavic population has been very good at being able to assimilate Jewish and Islamic peoples within Russia. But as I said, Putin was brave. He had his family threatened with death on a regular basis during that time, and he rose up through the ranks from when he was, I think he was mayor of St. Petersburg first, or he had some linking with the mayors of St. Petersburg. That's where his power base was, towards where the Nordic part of Russia is. But it wasn't an idle threat. The mafia families did kill each other's families in Russia. They are very powerful. They control companies. They control arms companies, and they will kill other people's families. So it's a very, very difficult situation to try and govern a country as powerful as with the potential power of Russia, but of course the expanse of Russia. It is a death of a once great nation. I will say that, even though I am I'm an opponent of most of the people who've dominated Russia, but for the first time, perhaps the Russians are gaining their own independence with an elite that is competing for the talents, or the dubious talents, of the criminal and intelligence fraternity. They're trying to gravitate themselves towards picking up those people because, of course, of the massive benefits that they can get, and luxury houses. Some of them, many of the houses of Russian government employees are worth over $10 million. And they have Dachas as well, and German-made cars, and Maybachs and all the rest of it. But there is a security reason for that. I'm not an apologist for government corruption, but that when you're faced against non-indigenous mafia elites such as the Jewish oligarchs, or indigenous elites of Russian mafia who are linked with the Sicilian and Italian Camorra mafia in that sense, that are exploiting the resources of Russia for their own personal benefit. You could level that accusation at the Russian government as well, and they are robbing the country. But it's a question of perhaps national sovereignty as well. So Russia is unequal, it is undemocratic, but it does have some sovereignty over itself. That is the only good thing that can be really said about it. And it will continue to try and attain and achieve that. But it has no sort of ability to innovate and to develop a real economy. If you look at the amount of Russian people who want to emigrate from the working and middle classes, it's around 70%. If you look at the people who should have, who are being given work opportunities, who are within the actual intelligentsia, the elite, even 60% of them want to leave. You know, you had within the 1970s a flight of Jewish intelligentsia to America and Israel, which enforced a previous move before the Second World War and after the Second World War towards America, which of course you can find out about the culture in the book Culture of Critique, which of course people have their detractors about, but it's describing a historical progress of where those people who were very pro-Jewish in terms of the Soviet Union became even more so when they got to America, and they haven't left. You know, most of the people from Israel came from Europe after the Second World War. They ethnically cleansed the Arabs out of the coastal strip and developed their state there, and fought the British Empire as well. But in America, the rise of Jewish mafia groups, vying with the Italians as well as other groups. Of course, Germans had their organised crime. German Americans had their organised crime roots to a small extent, but they eventually attained an anti-Russian and very much became part of the Anglo-Jewish establishment of North America, of course, which is staunchly part of the AIPAC projects to consistently dominate American political life. And the consensus there in America is just as much a managed democracy as Russia, whereas it's not American interests that are put first, but Israel's. So, and that's what's vying with. That's why the Russians backed the Arabs to a great extent. Not and also now the Iranians, you know, although the Arabs and Iranians don't get on, have never got on. The ability of the Russians to support Syria and things in terms of arms trade is, of course, stopping the legitimate right of the Syrians to get independence, and it makes Russia look very bad in the eyes of the West. But as usual, the Russians don't care. They're firmly for their own, beggar their neighbour national interest. But the cult of personality of Putin, of course, is disturbing. It is similar to the cults of Stalin, and who was Georgian, and Lenin, who was Jewish, of course. And it's a consistent thing within Russian political life that this happens. And of course they are trying to dominate Central Asia, just as the Americans are vying for control there through Afghanistan and others. But they're being pushed back by the Chinese, and this was the control over the ministries in Kazakhstan is firmly in the grip of Russia, but the actual infrastructure of oil is controlled by China, and Han Chinese are moving into Xinjiang, into Tibet, and into inner Mongolia and outer Mongolia, and also into the Siberian sphere of influence of Russia itself, which of course is part of Russia. You know, the republic is a federation of supposedly independent republics, but all roads lead to Moscow, and all power, everything, all the resources go to Moscow, all to the elite under Putin, and everybody is paid off. It is like a gangster organisation. It is a gangster organisation. It's firmly rooted within the KGB and the FSB, who've succeeded them. The KGB, of course, were succeeded from the NKVD, who got too powerful. They were killing so many people that Russia almost collapsed. As the only thing that saved the Russians as a people, perhaps, was the invasion by the Germans, because Stalin may have been on his way out.